Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's 10 o'clock here at Colorado time, and my gosh, happy first day of fall. It came in like a bulldozer in Colorado.
It was like 40 degrees this morning. It was awesome.
I was dropping my okay, see, here's where we're opposite, Ethan. I am not on the awesome side of this. I enjoy summer and the warmth and the heat.
Alicia will settle it. Where are you at with this, Alicia?
I am not ready for the cold.
Okay.
I don't want it.
We do get pretty nice falls here, so I feel like we're lucky in Colorado. But regardless of weather, welcome. We're so excited to have you all here. I am so excited for this month's webinar because we have the usual suspects here with Alicia and I, but we also have a special guest. So I'm going to go through some quick housekeeping stuff just to get it out of the way in case this is your first time with us. And then we're going to introduce people and just start jumping into this topic that we've got, which we're really excited about. So first and foremost, we always want our webinars to be interactive with you guys. So if you're looking at the bottom of your Zoom window, there's a chat function. There's also a Q&A function. What's the difference between the two, right? The chat is going to be really for community conversations. Hey, I've got a thought about this. This is going to be really pertinent with today's webinar because we're going to show you some clips from other sales experts. We want to hear your guys' thoughts on these as well. What stands out to you? That's what the chat is going to be for. Now, one note is when you pull up the chat in Zoom, it automatically chooses to only send chats to hosts and panelists. So there's that little blue bar. Make sure you click that and choose the everyone option so that not only will the three of us see it, but everybody that's here will see it as well. I see some people are already chatting in where they're from. We got people all over the country, which is awesome. Now, the Q&A is specifically for if you have really pertinent questions. Maybe you're going, I know I'm not the only person with this question. Throw it in there. This helps us keep really good track of it. And we've also got some awesome help on this meeting as well. We have Michelle and I believe Ray is hopping on as well to make sure that all of those questions get answered for you guys. So that's really important. If you're worried, you can see the chat kind of starts flying when we all get chatting in here. So make sure if you've got those pertinent questions, we've got those in the Q&A section there. Let's introduce some people. Most of you guys know Alicia, but good morning, Alicia. How are you?
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning to everyone. Happy to be here as always. I love seeing those familiar names in the chat. Welcome today.
Yes, so for those of you that are new, Alicia is our national speaker, which, man, your role has adapted a little bit over the last 2 years, huh? You don't get to travel around and speak as much.
I haven't been on stage in a little over a year and a half, but it's happening. It's happening.
Yeah, we still get to do these that are really fun, and things are opening back up. So, Alicia, thanks for being with us. These are really fun. You and I always have a good time on these. New face for those of you that have been with us a lot, or this is your first time. Ethan Beute is our chief evangelist. Ethan, how are you?
I'm great. It's fun to be here. I love the energy that you two bring to this. I love the energy in the chat, and I'm happy to share some of these insights that we picked up from some of these sales experts who wanted to have a conversation with us about how to be more personal and human, which most people on this webinar want to do all the time anyway.
Yeah, right? That's usually a universal truth for a lot of people. And I'll tell you what, if Alicia and I are able to bring any energy, Ethan's going to take us over the top because you are an energetic person. So I
care. That's the key. That's the key. Like for everyone on this that's using video in a variety of different ways, like hopefully you're doing what you do because you're passionate about it. At some level, you can deliver value for people. You're helping people. You're transforming someone's day or week or life or business. You're helping them get to a better solution or to overcome a problem. And you don't have to be big over the top to be able to communicate through video in a way that lets people know that you care. And so whether it's big energy or whether it's the smaller, more subdued energy, your sincerity and appreciation and value delivery are what people really want to see and feel. So that'll be a theme here.
Yeah, it's the intent. And we're going to talk about that a lot.
Yeah. So mine comes out in like I talk faster, I talk louder, I use my arms a little bit. That's how I do it. But if you don't do it that way, that doesn't mean that you're not translating well through the screen in a way that lets people know that you care about them and you care about their problem or opportunity.
All right. Well, that's what we got for you today on this webinar.
Shut it down.
Strong, right? It just comes in, mic drop at the beginning. So, well, let's talk about how are we going to cover this. So obviously this is all about 3 things that sales experts are telling you you should be doing. So what we're going to talk about is, first off, we want to introduce you to our sales experts. We want to talk a little bit about how we got to know them, and Ethan's going to have a lot to add as far as that stuff goes. We're going to go through those specific recommendations and give you some food for thought and some things that these people who have been in the industry for 15, 20, 30 years plus and why they recommend these things and why they've seen some of these transitions in the industry. And then you guys know we've been talking about this a lot as well, this idea of human-centered communication. I mean, Ethan, you just touched on a piece of that right there. It's not about your energy. It's not about how big you are. It's about your sincerity and you being a real human in some of those pieces. So this whole conversation is going to be wrapped around that, but we also have some exciting stuff to announce at the end of this that I'm really pumped about. And talk about seeing passion. I guarantee Ethan's going to get real passionate when we get into talking about this stuff. So it's going to be really, really fun. But let's jump in. Well, first and foremost, you guys know we always like to get you talking. I always said I like when these are interactive and more of a conversation with you. So I'm going to launch a poll real quick. And this is kind of a tricky one. So I'm curious what you guys think. But here's the question. What percentage of respondents, so HubSpot Global actually did a survey of almost 1,000 people that were surveyed. And I want you guys to guess what percentage of people said they trust salespeople, right? So we're not talking about a specific name. They could picture anybody in their mind of what they assume that salesperson would be. But what percentage of these 1,000 people do you think? Ethan, Alicia, do you guys have any guesses while we're getting?
I don't want to sway I want to see this vote cleanly. I believe, Kevin, did you pull this stat out of one of the chapters that we're going to be talking about today?
I did actually. I heard it initially, and then I did some research and looked it up. But she was right. She was honest with her response. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't remember that from the book. My guess is going to be like 12%.
Okay. I think that's fair. I'll give it another couple of seconds here. We've got almost 66% of you. If you want to get in, I'm going to give you like 4 more seconds. See if we can get up to 70% there. We're almost there, almost there. Oh, look at that. Right on the dot. All right. So here was let me share these results with you guys so you can see. So that 12%, just like you guessed, Alicia, was the top dog. Then we go to 3%. Unfortunately, not many of you think over 50%. We had one person that guessed over 50%. But so here's
I appreciate the optimism, and one of the people we're going to talk about hopes for that outcome.
Heck yeah, I think we all do, right? We all don't want to have this association of mistrust as salespeople. And Alicia, Ethan, you and I, we've all worn the sales hat at some point in our career. And so I think we associate ourselves with this a lot. So the actual answer was 3%. So hooray to those of you that guessed that. Womp womp. That's not very good news, right? I think as I was looking at this, one of the things that even felt a little bit more like, was that the only people below salespeople were lobbyists, politicians, and car salesmen. I think all of us sitting here go, that's not how I want to be associated. That's not how I want to represent myself and my business, right? So how do I not be? How do I change that? How do I make this so that I am not associated with this mistrust that is put on the salesperson tab, right? Well, how do we do that? It's by being human, right? I mean, by being ourselves, by showing people ourselves. And so it's just kind of a fun way to lead into this entire conversation that we're having this morning. So let's jump in. And Ethan, I'm going to kind of tag you and pull this up. I want you to introduce the salespeople that we're going to be talking about today, and just kind of lead in about a little bit about what they do and maybe even how you got to know them initially.
Sure. Lauren Bailey is awesome. As you can see on the screen, she's founder and president of Factor 8, which is a sales training company and a sales management training company. Her background is in corporate education. So she used to train large international sales teams on how to sell or position new products and things like that on behalf of name brands that we would all know. So she's taken that and gone out on her own, built a team and a company around it, and they're training salespeople and sales managers how to be more effective every single day in a variety of different ways. But I think what lights us up at BombBomb even more is that she's founder and president of an organization called Girls Club that seeks to change the face of sales leadership, specifically to equip, empower, motivate, build community around women in a way that allows them to take their rightful share of sales leadership positions. And she's a master of kind of the some of the psychological and truly gender-based differences that lead us to where we are today, with women as a vast minority of sales leaders relative to their population overall in the sales profession specifically, and in the population overall. So Lauren's great. I met her via our relationship to Girls Club. We support Girls Club. Darren, our president and co-founder, Darren Dawson, was their ally of the year in 2020, and has mentored several people through the program. And Clarissa Gidcombe, one of our awesome sales team members, was recently awarded, I forget her exact award, but we love Girls Club and Lauren's great. And so when we reached out to her, we'll talk more about her engagement with us in a minute. So next up is Mario Martinez Jr. He is a longtime video advocate. He was a sales leader who was charged by his leaders in his organization, a very large technology-based sales organization. He was charged with going out and hitting the streets and door knocking in San Francisco, which is, I mean, kind of a joke on its face, because you can't even get into these buildings, right? Like all these companies that you want to reach are on floor 3 and 12 and 18. You can't even get in the lobby because of security. And you're cold calling on a building that's not going to let you in. So he developed for himself and his team several virtual selling strategies, kind of like early phase. I think most of us hear something like virtual selling here, hopefully on the heels of a winding down pandemic, hopefully, and say, well, yeah, of course, virtual selling. We all have to sell virtually. Well, Mario was doing this years ago, and he was invited to present his initial effort at a big LinkedIn event a few years back. And that's when it just launched him into founding Vengresso, a virtual sales training company. And you might say, are Mario and Lauren competitive? No, in fact, they refer business to one another because their specialties and strengths are complementary rather than redundant. And so if you're looking for LinkedIn training, if you're looking for video training, even outside the bounds of BombBomb, like they do all kinds of virtual selling motions. And he is an early advocate of video messaging in the sales process. So we invited him into the conversation. Then third up is this guy, Morgan J. Ingram. He reminds me a lot of Steve Pacinelli, longtime team member and friend, in that he's on this constant mission of personal learning and growth. He is not scared to try something to see if it's better, do it for a prescribed period of time, look for a specific result. And if the result is there, double down, iterate, get even more out of it. If the result isn't there, maybe iterate and try it again, or, ditch it and try something new. And so this guy has the hard job. He came up as a sales development rep, like someone that generates opportunities and then hands them up or off to the salesperson. And this can be a thankless job in a variety of organizations. And yet it's an absolutely critical job. So that's how he came up. And so he's a sales trainer. He does tons of content. He's a great person to follow online for content, podcasts, videos, great follow on LinkedIn, YouTube channels, etc. Really good dude.
Awesome. I know that's a lot of information, but it gives you this heart of, we didn't just pick random people that work in sales, right? I mean, you guys really went to the top. Alicia, you were even saying Lauren personally. Is that right?
Yeah, through Girls Club, I've got to connect with Lauren. I've done a couple sessions for them with Girls Club. And the very first time that Lauren and I met over Zoom, we just instantly connected and bonded. And I think it's part of what's been so exciting about reading the book with these sales leaders is that these are people that are aligned ideologically with us, right? That's what makes it so exciting. I know for myself, like reading the book has been so inspiring, not because it's like rocking my world and I'm hearing new things, but it's like, yes, these are people that want to see business thrive the way we want to see businesses thrive. So it's exciting.
And they're just great people. They're really good humans, which is always like a really nice level on this. They're good at what they do and they're good people. So, okay, we've been teasing the book. We've been saying the book a lot. You guys,
let's go one layer deeper into that really quickly, and then we'll get into the lessons.
Yeah, let's do it. So talk a little bit, Ethan, about, you can go specific into each of these people, but where did this idea come from? What made us start diving into this?
Good. And I'll go really fast so we can get into the core content, but Steve Pacinelli and I co-authored Rehumanize Your Business a couple of years ago. I'm sure many of the people on the call, just because you're friends in our community, have maybe seen that book. And so Steve and I have talked intermittently about doing another one. And we're just looking for the right idea, the right spark, the right timing. And a couple of the key underlying truths that we recognized were, number one, no matter what happens relative to the pandemic. And by the way, if you pre-order this book and read it, you will not see the word COVID. You'll not see the word pandemic, but it's under there, because no matter pandemic or not, we're definitely going to be spending more time in digital, virtual, and online spaces to be successful in our work. Whether we're salespeople, leaders, managers, marketers, customer service people, customer support people. No matter what our role is, we're going to be doing more work digitally, virtually, and online. I think we'll all accept that as true. In addition, these channels, these digital, virtual, and online environments are noisier than ever, right? We all know that our inbox is too full. There's spam on LinkedIn, all these things. Why am I in this group text message? Oh my gosh, this is so annoying. All of these things, it's noisier, but it's also more polluted than ever, which is this really unwelcome distraction that we experience throughout our day. As we try to get to our real work, we have all these interruptions and confusions. And is this link safe to click? Is this document actually from the person who says they sent it to me, right? Is this the contract, or is this malware that's going to jack my computer and like leave me subject to ransomware, right? So those two things are true, right? And so how do we actually break through and get attention, create engagement, build trust? How do we get to the next level? So we're all on Zoom calls. A lot of us are on video messages, but in a lot of cases, we're just showing up. We're turning our cameras on and hoping for the best and acting like we're in person, but we're not. There are a number of really unique nuances to all of these channels. And so Steve and I sought out to invite, our original goal was 10. We ended up with 11 because we just did, and I'm glad we did. Got 11 of these types of expert friends in sales, marketing, customer experience, customer success, leadership, management, emotional intelligence, like true experts and leaders in their fields, to join us in deep conversation. So we did deep research on these people in advance. We read their books, listened to their podcasts, watched their YouTube channels, read their blog posts. We knew, like Lauren, we knew Lauren personally beforehand, but some of these other people we kind of only knew of it, but they still said yes to join us. And so Steve and I did this deep dive, did deep interviews. Many of them were over 2 hours long, and then turned them into individual chapters. So the guts of this new book, Human-Centered Communication, chapters 3 through 13 are all featuring a single expert. So chapter 8 here is the decade for sellers to shine, an honest and hard look at the state of the sales industry, individuals' confidence, ability to appear on camera, natural tendencies. How do we look forward to the future better? The next one, The Art and Science of Helping with Mario Martinez Jr., where we get into efficiency versus effectiveness, science versus art, and some of these other things that lead us to maybe behave in ways that don't serve our customers best because we think it's the most efficient thing, but that might not actually be the most effective. And then with Morgan J. Ingram, we leaned into his expertise in video messaging, in prospecting, and how to do that in a way that truly serves people and invites the conversation rather than, come straight through as, I have something, do you want to buy it? Or can I have 15 minutes of your time, right? These asks with no value attached. And so a lot of good frameworks and formulas and things that we're going to get into here, even in this webinar itself.
Well, yeah, you couldn't have teased up. I think we should just jump right in now that we've gotten a really good introduction. And the first thing that we really learned from Morgan specifically was this idea of formulas. You just teased that up perfectly, Ethan, I think completely by accident, but it worked. So I'm going to go ahead and play this because I want you guys to hear Morgan's words first. And then we're going to give you some context. And I also want to hear you guys chat in on what your thoughts, what your opinions are of this clip specifically, and how you kind of navigate this space. So let's go ahead and hear what Morgan says. I apologize if there is a little bit of an audio delay, visual delay. That's just from kind of feeding through everything. So let's go ahead and listen to this first.
I don't like scripts at all. I don't like the way that they are prescribed to people. I believe more so in a formula, because in that formula, you can be more of yourself, right? Because we go back to the human element. When you give someone a script, it's the play-by-play of what they need to do. And the thing is, people aren't able to go outside of that, unfortunately. And so they get on a video and they sound like they're a wind-up robot. And it's like, who is this person, right? And you mentioned it, right? They don't look at the camera. They're not able to deliver their message, and it sounds really off. So I don't believe in scripts. I'm more of a formula person because I know if there's a formula of how to execute it, you can do it different ways. So an example is 3 + 1 = 4, but also 0 + 4 = 4. Also 2 + 2 = 4. So there's multiple ways to get the 4, but it always ends up to 4. And the formula is, I can always get a result off of this formula. It doesn't matter how I really articulate that, but it has to fit the formula. That's my take on it.
Okay, so this has been a topic that I know for me personally has come up a lot over the 5 years that I've been here at BombBomb. Alicia, I'm sure you're the same way, but what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think for so long, especially in sales, people worked off of scripts, right? You were given your call script. You were given this is what you say to get this result. And I love hearing other people's support for the shift away from, right? Like we've never taught scripts at BombBomb. I've been teaching for probably about 5 years here, and we've always taught formulas. And, you know, as an actor, because you're an actor as well, Kevin, we've got some background here, but it actually takes hard work to take someone else's words, a script, and make them sound like your own. That's the difference between a good actor and a bad actor. Are they reading the lines and does it sound robotic, or are they actually bringing belief into it? And so, you know, I think it's really, really important to, even if you're given a script, right? Even if your organization says, this is our call script, to take this idea and make sure that you're keeping the heart of the script, but you've got to use words that sound like you. It's not believable if you're not using your own words. It's hard to make someone else's words sound like your own.
Ethan, when you guys were doing the interview with him, and obviously I think you preempted this question specifically, but what is your theory on this? Do you agree with that? Do you disagree for any reasons?
I do not disagree at all. And a number of the other people that we interviewed around these themes would agree as well. This robotic thing comes up. And two things I want to share on this in particular. One, on this robotic theme, you know, we can dehumanize our own team members by saying, do this, right? It strips them of their autonomy. It strips them of their unique strength. It strips them of their ability. And now I'm bridging into the second idea. Morgan said, you know, it sounds really off. And when you're putting your words in someone else's mouth, it just sounds really off. And it's because there's this discrepancy between what you're saying and how you're saying it. If you're given a script that you didn't create, that you don't really understand, that you don't really necessarily maybe even believe in, then that discrepancy is going to come through to other people. We're constantly making that judgment. People aren't going to consciously say, oh, well, by the way, if you do it really badly, people definitely say, oh, that person's reading a script. We've all seen it, especially if you're reading it off your screen while you're on video. You know, that's super obvious. But even in this, you know, you're looking at the camera, but you're doing the script. People can feel that there's this discrepancy between where, you know, how you're saying it and what you're actually saying, that there's just this lack of integrity. And I don't mean a lack of truth. I just mean this lack of integrity or wholeness in, I have value. I want to communicate that to you, and I'm doing it, and I care, and I'm interested, and I'm motivated. And so, you know, we can sound really off. We can sound robotic and made to feel not ourselves. And in that way, a bit dehumanized, like, I'm just a cog in the wheel. I'm just here to say these words and do my job and hope for the best. And that's not winning for anybody. It's not winning for the manager. It's not winning for the frontline person. It's certainly not winning for the prospect or customer.
Sure. I totally agree. And I think one of the things that I love the most about his talking point is that there are multiple ways to get a good result. I think there's kind of, to your point, Ethan, there's this assumption that, oh, we have to give them the right things to say or our salespeople won't figure it out for whatever reason, right? It's taking the trust away from them. And so this idea of being more yourself, that there isn't a right, okay, I will take this back. Maybe there is a wrong way to do it, but there's a lot of right ways to do it as well, right? There's a lot of different directions we can go. I think it was Greg even just chatted in. Can we get an example of the difference between script and formula, right? So the way that I look at this, and I'd be really open if you guys have any different opinions on this as well, is script is literally saying word for word, here's what you're going to say, right? I'm going to write it out. Maybe I'll leave a little blank spot for you to put a person's name or their company, but I'm literally giving you, this is what you're going to say on this call or this email. I think we've all gotten those. We've all gotten those LinkedIn messages that are just copy and pasted over, right? We've all felt that. And it's crazy how easily you can tell those, right? Because it's not about you specifically. A formula is more of, here's what I'm going to hit at certain points. Some people even chatted in, I like to use bullet points, right? And have some ideas to talk about. One of the things that was not in this clip, but that Morgan works on a lot is this 10-30-10 formula that he really believes in. Ethan, Alicia, does one of you guys want to expand on that a little bit? Because I think this was a really interesting thing I'd never heard before.
Yeah, Ethan, go ahead.
Yeah, happy to take it. So he says this is especially in prospecting. Again, his primary sales motion and his expertise is in this really early business development, sales development phase. I want to create the conversation. So it's typically colder, right? He's not reaching out to past clients to spark conversations. He's reaching out to people that may not know him, his company, the problem that they solve, et cetera. And so keep it under a minute, I think, is a good tip for videos that are particularly cold. And so this is his structure for an under 1 minute video, which is, why am I reaching out? The core and guts of it need to be, some actual value delivery, or even the promise of specific promise of value. And then what's the call to action? And in this, the one nugget I want to add here, this is money in the bank. Like, this is worth your time here today alone, is an interest call to action versus a direct call to action. Direct call to action is pick up the phone and call this number, or reply to this email, or click this link and take that survey, or whatever, like a very direct call to action. Go do this now. In this prospecting motion where you're looking to create a conversation with someone you don't really know yet, he cited a research that we also cited in the book. So this isn't just like impression based, it's research based over thousands of cold outreach messages. The interest call to action. Does this seem like something you'd be interested in? Or is this worth us pursuing? Might this be worth a 5-minute conversation? Just this softer, like, are you interested at all? And this is a benefit to both people. It's easy for them to say yes or no, as opposed to say, yeah, maybe, but at what time, and all this other stuff that like creates friction in the decision. It's easy for them. And then it's also easy for you. If someone says no, move on. If someone says yes, let's pursue then the nuance of what more direct engagement might look like.
Yeah.
Have you ever used interest CTAs like that, Alicia?
Lately I have actually, since I read that in the book about the interest call to action, I've been trying to be more intentional about shifting both the way I do it and the way I teach it. But this formula is almost identical to the same formula that we've been teaching our customers for that first touch video for years, which was empathy,
value, call to action.
Yeah, right. Exactly the same. And so, I think that's where I hope that you guys feel encouraged that this is really, this isn't a brand new thing. This is just, reaffirming these things that we know, that you want to connect with someone right away. You want to make sure they understand what value they're going to get from taking the next step. And you want to make it really clear what the next step is. That's your formula, right? Connect with them, offer value, give them a way to get that value. It's good.
It's interesting because we have gone through training with some outside companies. Somebody that's actually in the book as well, Jocko van der Kooi, has a company called Winning by Design that we've learned some pieces from here at BombBomb. And they love acronyms, right? So if you're somebody that likes acronyms, they use this RRR framework of relevance, reward, request. It's exactly the same. I mean, the formulas are all just different ways to process and think about the exact same thing. So that consistency is killer. Whatever connects with you in any of those, write it down, remember it. There's a great chat too. I don't know if you guys saw this with Raymond talking about how he was starting a radio station, and the first one was fully scripted. He hated it. He didn't like it. The second time he was able to speak from the heart, and the donors went up 100% because he spoke from the heart. I mean, that's just a real world story.
It's not what you say, it's how you say it. That's it. They could feel the difference in Raymond as he did that.
Yep. So I love that. Sorry, Alicia, did you have something else to add there?
No, I just wanted to add I saw someone in chat, Adam was saying, do you have a real world example of this? And if you go to our resource hub, you're going to be able to find examples in whatever industry you are in, whether you are insurance or mortgage or real estate or outbounding sales or a BDR. If you go to our resource hub, you can see real world examples of people in your industry doing this and using these types of formulas.
Yeah, Michelle, if you wouldn't mind grabbing the resource hub link and just throwing it in the chat, that would
already
be
did it.
Literally already there. Ethan, gosh, you're typing faster than I can even think and process right now. So, all right, let's jump on to point number 2 here. So this is Lauren Bailey, who we introduced you guys to a little bit earlier. And we've already talked about a little bit of these concepts because these are very big themes within kind of where we're headed as a company and in this book specifically. But she talks about being more human and less robotic. It's a quick clip, but man, I think there's some powerful stuff in it. So let's kind of take a look at hers.
I think if you can share a little bit of yourself without compromising your professionalism, please err on that side, right? There's no reason we need to make sales more robotic and less human. We got to swing the pendulum to the other side. And this is our opportunity.
Okay, so this, man, the word professional, I think has a lot that comes with it. Alicia, what are your thoughts on that specifically?
So one of the reasons why Lauren and I connected right out of the gate when we first met is that we're both so passionate about authenticity and vulnerability in our jobs, in our communication, in the way we connect with people. You know, we're both big Brene Brown junkies, but I love this so much because I feel like for so long, we believed that there was this dividing line, right? You have your work you and you have your home you, and the two shall never meet. And we're shifting away from that. You know, Ethan had mentioned about the dehumanization of even the sellers. If you are expected to show up to work and not have any real human emotions, only the fake, I'm happy to be here. If you are not expected to talk about who you are or the things you care about, it is dehumanizing. And yet over and over and over again, we understand people buy from other people that they know, like, and trust. How can you get to know someone? How can you get a sense of if you like someone if they're not showing you the real version of themselves? So, you know, obviously there's some context here with professionalism. You know, Lauren has said it in other clips, like, don't do videos in your bathrobe. Don't show up on Zoom calls. You know, I think she says like wearing the ACDC t-shirt or something like that. But you know, it's be professional, but also be a real human being, because that's the key to building trust. I cannot reiterate this enough. I've done sessions for Girls Club on vulnerability. I talked to our sales team about vulnerability yesterday. And again, it's not this like, oh, I'm just going to be my full self because I was given permission to just let you have it. But there's this, you know, there's this line like be professional, but you get to be a real human being, and video is part of what enables you to show up as a real human being and not just the robotic salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
Ethan, go ahead.
I was just going to ask Ethan, I'm curious if this has ever been a hard thing for you to kind of find that balance in the middle there, and maybe how do you find that? How do you find that middle ground of what you feel like is still professional in a way you want to present yourself, but is still authentically Ethan at the same point?
Yeah, context appropriate. I mean, that's where we were at this point in the conversation. This was probably a 90-minute conversation. And at this point, we were talking about like how far is too far? How much of your real full self do you show versus how much do you hold back? And so what she's speaking to here is, you know, for the longest, like I'm 2 decades into my career, and for the better part of my career, you know, there was the, you know, how we think we should look, how we think we should sound. Are we suited up, like not necessarily in a business suit, but are we suited up in a way, you know, that is professional? And we get all focused on being business-like, and we create this divide within ourselves. And, you know, there is a context appropriate boundary to be drawn. And I think, you know, for example, among our real estate customers, you definitely will see people wearing full-on proper suits, male or female suits. But you'll also see people in flip-flops and shorts and ball caps. And both of them are doing multi-millions of dollars in transactions every year. And they're just doing it their own way. And so what Lauren's saying here is if you have to, and here's the thing, I would assume that those people aren't putting on a suit because they feel obligated to do it. I think they probably want to feel that way. It gives them a certain look. It gives them a certain feeling. It's true to who they are. It's how they want to present themselves. It's part of their personal/professional brand. And I think we can all land there. I mean, for me, I have a uniform of nice, plain, approximately well-fitting t-shirts. And I find that fits in most circumstances, right? And you can see behind me, I have some personal elements here, but it's also tidy. I'm a tidy person. But if I wasn't a tidy person, all the mess would be right up here where you can't see it, because I also want to balance this personal versus professional. So it's a fine line. And Lauren's main caution here is we are past the era where we need to default to being sterile, air quote, professional, polished, and in that way, potentially inauthentic and a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit constrained, and to let ourselves go a little bit and to be more honest with ourselves and honest with other people. Because, you know, if we went into a vulnerability monologue, which you don't have time for, we need to probably pick up the pace. This ability to lean toward the personal side is an invitation for someone to connect with us in a truly human way, which becomes an increasingly valuable thing as we continue our march into digital, virtual, and online spaces. Your ability to find moments to connect with other human beings becomes more and more valuable to the relationship, to the business relationship, and to the successful outcome than ever. It's only going to increase in value. So we need to find opportunities to create that, and vulnerability and a personal touch versus a professional touch are key to that.
I love what you said about how it's an invitation into connection. One of Brene Brown's quotes around vulnerability is that it's the first thing that we look for in other people, but it's the last thing we want to show in ourselves. And if you are in sales, which most of you are, part of your job as a sales professional is to get someone else to open up to you and tell you what their problem is, right? What is it that you can help them with? And it's one of these ways that you get to, align yourself with them and show that little bit of humanity. And it's going to go a long way in building trust with the other person when they get to see that little bit of humanity, because they're a human too. They're not a robot.
One of the things I love that you said there, Ethan, is, and I'm probably butchering the way you said it, but what makes you feel good? What makes you feel confident, right? I think dress, when we think of professionalism, it's always dress is always a piece of it that comes up. I heard a quote, a long time ago, Deion Sanders, who is a professional football player. He is a character. He is a character of a
He's
human
a character.
being.
Yeah.
But they asked him one time why he wore so many like armbands and things when he would play. And he'd always wear these like super fancy diamond earrings. And his quote, and do not correct my verbiage and grammar on this, because this is his direct quote, is look good, feel good, play good. Right. And as corny as that is, it's something I've always felt of like,
look good. Sorry. I want to slow that down. Look good, feel good, play good. Yep.
And that's how it's always been for me. Alicia, you can attest. I'm probably the only person that ever showed up in the BombBomb sales floor in a tie. Nobody wore ties. Like, I did that not because I felt like I wanted to portray this certain image, but I felt more confident when I wore certain things, right? I feel better, and I feel like I'm presenting myself in a way that I am happy with and comfortable with. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody else, but I think that confidence level is a big part of this. If you feel confident in flip-flops and cargo shorts showing up on your video, do it, right? If you're okay with your people seeing you that way, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're more comfortable in a suit and tie and those sort of things, then obviously you can go that direction too. Now, I think one piece of this that I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on as well is, we were talking about vulnerability, and I'm not going to go down that whole rabbit hole, I promise. But this whole working from home thing, I saw an awesome chat that somebody said some of the best moments in webinars that I've been on is when somebody's kid or dog walks in the room. But there's a vulnerability to that. Like, we're letting people into our space. I'm literally in my bedroom right now. That's a very vulnerable space to be, right? How do you guys balance that? Ethan, you touched about not having it be super messy behind you and those sort of things, but do you feel like that's part of this conversation of professional versus human versus, I don't know, how do you guys balance that piece?
Yeah, I think it's what Alicia said earlier, the cultural move away from what is supposed to be. We're all forced into a layer of honesty. And I think that's what starts breaking down the wall. I also think that the lack of a commute for a lot of people, this weird time space moment where I'm in between my professional self and my home self. I often I live really close to the office, but that allowed us to kind of mental up for the professional game and mental down for the home game, the personal game, and that went away too. And so there's no question that the past 18 months have really accelerated. It's accelerated so many things, but it's accelerated this move toward it's okay to bring your whole self to your job. And if you're not bringing your whole self, you're not bringing your best self. And I think the leading edge leaders and managers among us all are acknowledging that, supporting that, equipping people, encouraging people in a way that allows them to bridge that.
One thing I would add on that, the work from home thing, and there is a lot of, there's differences of opinion among our experts in the book with the virtual background versus the not virtual background. And I love it because, Lauren talks about it in her chapter where, for the first time, you're actually, sometimes having conversations with a CEO in their own house. And there's actually some power in in that, like, I'm a big believer of the non-virtual background, unless I'm really trying to like respect the people in my house because my kids are walking around and they don't want to be on camera. But I really prefer to let people see the real space within context. But it's another layer to think about, right? I think a virtual background can be really powerful if used correctly, and our experts in the book talk about that. And I also think that people use a virtual background to kind of get away from some of people seeing some of their humanity. So there's some balance there for sure.
That's what's so interesting about all of this space is there a black and white answer to any of this, right? I think there are certain aspects of it of where like, we don't want to see a robot on screen, but how do you be more human? It's going to be really different for you guys than it is for me. And that's good. And that's appropriate. And that's what makes you who you are and kind of what brings it. It's funny that you bring up virtual backgrounds. Mario Teaser is one of the people who loves virtual backgrounds. You can see he's using one in his. He's got a really beautiful virtual background that they have built. That's not exactly what we're talking about in his example, but he was one that really stood out to me when I was going through the book, of somebody that was definitive on, this is my truth and this is why I think it's true, right? So this video we're going to watch is a totally different point than that, but I just thought it was kind of funny tie-in as we were talking through that. How do we be more specific with our activities? How are we measuring the right things? I know working in real estate, it's really hard to go, what are the right things to do? If you're a BDR, an SDR, an AE, whatever alphabet soup I can throw out that's in sales, right? You guys know there's a lot of KPIs. There's a lot of things that are being measured for you to be successful at your job. Are we looking at the right things? Are you measuring the right things either for yourself or for your team? Let's listen to Mario's opinion, and then I know we'll have some things to say on that for sure.
What most sales organizations for business development are looking for is around 50 to 60 different touch points per day with a potential buyer. We dropped that in half. I want 25. Why do I want 25? Because I want 25 meaningful customer interactions where I'm doing the research, I'm pulling the data, and that will produce 7 to 10 appointments that are meaningful and qualified per week. So that's what we're looking for in terms of, this automation. Is there a place for automation? Yes, absolutely. Is there a place for us to utilize certain sequences? Yes, absolutely. Should I just load a prospect into my sales sequencer or cadence tool because they are now a target and I drop them in because I find their email from ZoomInfo or Seamless.ai? No. What we should do is we should always attempt to warm up that particular buyer first. Social touch, interaction, connection, a possible one-to-one email message, a one-to-one video message, a phone call, a text. Then we might enroll them into a sales sequence.
Okay, I mean, there's a lot in that minute and a half clip. Alicia, what stands out to you? I mean, what really hit home the most for you in that clip?
I mean, there's two things that really stand out. And one is I love his radical, brave approach, because if you tell most sales leaders, we want your team to cut their activities in half, they're going to kick you out of their conference room, right? Because this is how you guarantee that you have a full pipeline, right? You do this many activities so that you can have this many conversations, so that you can have, this many, conversions. And for Mario to right out of the gate say, no, cut those activities in half, make them more meaningful. It sounds radical, but it's not. Like, why are you pushing your people to do activities that aren't creating meaningful impact points, which is where Mario is like, no, create meaningful impact points. The second thing that I really love is he talks about how important it is to make a personal connection before you add them to some automated sequence. There's a Tiffany Bova quote. Tiffany Bova is the chief evangelist at Salesforce. And I heard her speak a couple years ago, and she said, do you want to be better at your job or not? Automate the things you can, but human contact can never be automated. So yes, there are places in the sales cycle where you do need to automate, but the things that you should be automating are, you should be automating value, right? You should be automating education in regards to building like positive points of impact and familiarity with who you are and what you have to offer. There has to be human contact there, and you can't automate it.
It's interesting. I think as soon as we start talking about human-centered communication and this idea and this concept, immediately a lot of our minds at BombBomb went to, we can't use automation anymore. I think a lot of us went, oh shoot, is that personal? Is that human, right? Ethan, I'm sure you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, one of the many premises underpinning human-centered communication is the idea that we need to do what serves other people best. Sometimes that means we send a video. Sometimes that means we send typed out text. Sometimes it means we don't say anything at all. Sometimes it's an automated touch. Sometimes it's a truly personal touch. Sometimes it's a segmented touch where I say, if this and this and this are true and this is false, then I'm going to send this message to all the people that fit that criteria. And so there's a place for all of this. The number one thing is to be intentional and conscious about what is in it for the other person and why would, could, should they respond to it. If we can think about that before we create digital messages, digital experiences, you mentioned sequences and cadences. You might think of this as like, you know, an automated series of emails, like a nurture sequence or a drip sequence. There's a place for these things, as the slide says, as Alicia said, and as Mario and everyone else would say. And so the goal here is to balance it. One caution. He's talking about activities. And so he's saying, like, you know, if you and your team are focused on, I need X number of phone calls, X number of emails, X number of LinkedIn connection requests, X number of videos a day, that's not inherently bad. But the main caution I have here is that those are to drive an outcome. So what is the real outcome we want? Right. And the problem with focusing on the activity counts and the activity like performance is the actual activities can come to supplant the real goal. The goal start in our mind and our behavior starts to become, oh, well, I'm 4 emails short today, or I'm 4 phone calls short today, right? No. Are you short on the actual outcome you want? So we can't confuse the goal that we actually want. The outcome is the outcome. And in many of his cases, it's booked meetings and solid conversations. So underlying this is efficiency versus effectiveness. Could I get to the same out? Mario is on the balance here. I think I can get to the same outcomes with half of the activities because I'm going to balance efficiency and effectiveness. And I think a lot of people think, well, if I want twice the results, then I need to like double the activities, but that math doesn't hold. And we prove that out a number of times throughout the book and throughout these interviews. So we need to balance efficiency and effectiveness. We need to balance the personal touch and the automated touch. And we need to make sure that we don't confuse what the goal is. The goal is the outcome. The goal is the closed transaction, or the goal is the booked meeting, or the goal is a productive conversation. All the other stuff is just upstream. And there are lots of ways, just like Morgan said, 2 + 2 = 4, but 3 + 1 = 4 too. The goal is to get to 4. So let's not worry about how exactly we're getting there. But let's just get there.
There was that.
Oh, go ahead, Alicia. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I was just going to say, I think it's really interesting. I don't remember where, Ethan, you and I may have had a conversation about this at some point as well, is if we think about it with that mindset of, okay, so I'm getting 20 interactions, right? 20 meetings. I want to up that to 40. So I've got to double the amount of activities that I'm doing. Well, what about all of those people that are not getting to the 20 interactions? Are we now creating people that are not enjoying us, right? Are we creating more people that don't like BombBomb just to try and up that number of people that do by upping those activities? Versus if we're measuring the right things, are we actually creating advocates and people that go, you know what, I don't need BombBomb, but I appreciate the way you handled it.
So that's the key. I mean, we started the conversation on trust. That's part of this human-centered approach. Like, if we are not more mindful of who's on the other side of these messages and experiences and what a successful outcome looks like for them, if we don't have that in mind first, we're burning down our relationships and we're burning down our reputation, not just with those individual human beings, but with the machines that are going to increasingly control what those human beings see and hear and experience in the future. We're cutting off our nose to spite our face if we're operating from purely selfish motives. We need to balance those two as well. What's good for us, what's good for the customer. We need to find that truth. We have to perform our work profitably, or we have no right to perform it. So there's a balance there, but this is fundamental.
Yeah. Alicia, what were you gonna add there?
There was a comment in chat about prompt with an LOL when we first started talking about automation, but I feel like prompt is a perfect example of where you can have the automated piece, but it can't be your entire strategy, right? Like I said at the beginning, you should be automating value, you should be automating education, and that's what we do with prompt. We try and automate that consistent value for you so that you have the consistency, but then we also, every single month, I send a follow-up video telling you to dive deeper with the people that engaged with that value, because you have to have a blend of the automation and then the more human touch, right? So I love that someone brought up the prompt when we started talking about automation, not always being great, because that really is what we're trying to do there. We're trying to give you an avenue to use automation, but don't forget that the other piece of your strategy has to be more personal, human, intentional contact.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question, and this might be a big answer, but in trying to honor time, try and be as concise as we can. Tracy put in the chat, she said, what do you tell yourselves when you send something and get no response at all, right? So if we change our measures to play devil's advocate, and we're being more meaningful, we're really trying to be impactful and add that value, but we're still not getting any responses, what do you do? I mean, how do you interact in those situations? Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it depends. There's lots of different possibilities here. I think the first thing to recognize is that if you are doing very thoughtful, intentional, personal one-to-one reach outs and you're getting no response whatsoever, like, are they opening them? Is your tracking letting you know? Hopefully, whether they're even seeing those messages or not. If they're seeing those messages and they're not responding, then maybe they're not finding value in there. Maybe the next message is, is there something that I could provide value, or what do you need from me? You also have to take into account that, the digital pollution piece doesn't go away just because you're being more intentional and thoughtful and personal. So they may not have seen that message. There may have been a subject line that they skipped over, or they thought maybe it was a mass sales message. So I think you need to both, one, ask yourself, am I providing value? Am I providing value in a way that they know there's value for them? And maybe they just don't want to listen. Or, part of the deal with sales or email or communication or marketing is that some people just aren't going to respond to you, unfortunately.
If it were as easy as A plus B equals C, everybody would be a salesperson, right? But they can't be. There's that art. That's the mixture of the art and science that Mario talks about a lot in the book.
We could do a whole webinar on this topic alone. It's a fantastic question. Just one quick tip, and it's just kind of echoes something that Alicia offered. Before you write the subject line, before you type any text, before you even record the video, why would or why should someone respond? Why would or why should someone open this email? Why would or why should someone play this video? And when you do that, then you'll almost invariably craft a better subject line, because you're speaking to what's in it for them. You greet them. First line of text is why they should play the video. What's in the video? What's the value to them? What's of interest? What's unique? Why did you send it? And why would they want to engage in it? And then at least one line of text below it, reinforcing whatever the call to action is. And again, from their perspective. And so that's just a simple formula and a simple habit. It feels like it's more work out of the gate, but the more you do it, the faster and easier you get at it, the more you'll identify some patterns that work, because a lot of these people you're reaching out to for the same reason. There are only subtle nuances between the people and the situation. So you can use this formula that you're developing because it works to do more often. I'm also never afraid to, a few days later, just reply to my own send and just say, hey, I reached out to you because X wanted to make sure you saw it. Right. And then delete my signature so that it pulls up the original email so that it's all right there, because they might have just said, oh, I'm going to look at that later. And then they just didn't, because the just keeps coming. So much noise in all these channels.
Yeah. Well, I want to jump into our last kind of bonus solution here. And this is more of something that Lauren Bailey said here that we thought was incredibly motivating for all of us to hear. And we want to make sure that we pass that on to you guys. So I'm just going to play the clip, and then we're going to finish off with some last couple of things here. But let's go ahead and listen to what Lauren had to say.
The vast majority of people I talked to got into sales because somebody told them they'd be good at sales. It's not something we all grow up wanting to be. And yet most of us wind up here. And I guess the point is this: believe in that. There is something about you that people connect to. There is something about you that influences, that convinces, that builds credibility or trust. And if you believe that, then you're doing yourself a disservice by not turning on the video, by not using it synchronous or asynchronous, because people buy from people, right? Just like employees, they join companies and leave bosses. I found your company due to the product research I did on the website, but the reason I come to you and not you, because let's be honest, we all have 10 competitors, is because of the person on the other end. So we have to just bite the bullet and take a deep breath and click the button.
I hope that's a really good reminder for all of you sitting here. We've all been in those moments as salespeople where we're like, what am I doing? How do I keep going? How do I keep grinding? Right? I think everybody has felt that at some season of their lives. If you're in that season, take Lauren's words to heart. You didn't just fall into being a salesperson. You got here because people saw something in you. I think that's just really, really powerful and awesome. So let's recap this. And then Ethan, I want to give you a few minutes just to talk about the book. And if this is a topic that people are super interested in, how can they get more information there? But just to recap the points that we talked about: formulas over scripts, right? Whether that's an acronym you use, that 10-30-10 split that Morgan uses, find a way that makes the most sense for you so you're not scripted. Ultimately, because we don't want to be more robotic, right? Allow yourself to be you. Find that mix between professionalism and human. And that mix for you is your own mixture. It's going to be different than anybody else's. Just allow that to make you more confident in the videos you're doing. Half the activities, really reevaluate the activities that you're measuring, I think is a more appropriate way for us to say that is look at those activities and find the way that you can measure what is most impactful, whether it's meetings or conversations, but find those ways to have that human connection and use that relationship selling versus just the, I've got to do more, right? I've got to do more activities. And then that last piece we just watched with Lauren there, believe in others' belief in you, right? There's a reason that you are in the seat that you're in. There's a reason that you're putting in the work that you're putting in every day. So find that there. Ethan, talk a little bit about this book that we've been talking about.
Yeah, you can just run all those points because we're uptight and I'll go quickly. But first I want to acknowledge Jim's comment that every facet of life is selling 24/7, 365. That's Dan Pink's To Sell Is Human, among other sources. We all need to connect, influence, persuade other people. And so you can apply these concepts of human-centered communication to any channel, not just digital, but that's what we're focused on because of the increasing noise and pollution. So this is a book I co-authored with Steve. We already talked about it. We are a couple weeks out now from release. It's going to start shipping probably October 9, 10, or 11. So now is the time to pre-order. And we put together some really fun packages, whether you just want one copy for yourself, 500 copies in 8 hours, a full day of sales training or engagement with Steve and me, on site or virtual, whatever you're comfortable with or is most appropriate, or anything in between. So I just want to highlight, for example, at 25 copies, if you want 25 copies for your team members or your clients or other people, you get 7 live events, some bonus books and t-shirts, 14 plus hours of interviews. By the way, if you order one book and you send me the receipt, book@bombbomb.com or ethan@bombbomb.com, you get access to all of the interviews we did with all 11 people immediately. I'll respond to you within usually 4 hours, unless you do it in the middle of the night. So all the interviews, 45 minutes of customized presentation or consultation. Steve and I will, if you want us to get on a call with your executive leaders and consult about your sales and marketing go-to-motion where video fits in, we'll do that. If you want to get 600 people on a Zoom call and have us give a presentation or a fireside chat or a back and forth with you or your leadership or whatever, we'll do that. That time is yours to use however you like. And I will personally engage with you to figure out what's most appropriate and what some of your options are and what's going to be of value to you. And that's for $600. You can barely get anyone to do anything for $600. You get all the books shipped, by the way, to up to 25 different addresses. You can put 25 different gift notes in each of those 25 boxes, all through the partners that we're running these bulk pre-orders through. So I just wanted to highlight that one because there's insane value in there. So you start at bombbomb.com/book. You'll click through to human-centered communication. On that page, you can click and see the pre-order bonuses. And again, my email address is ethan@bombbomb.com, or you can email book@bombbomb.com if you have any questions about any of this stuff.
I love it, Ethan. And the simple homework we're going to give you guys is just go to the website. And this is not to just go to buy the book. If you love what we're talking about and this is interesting to you, of course, buy the book. But this is not just solely for that. I want you to look at these ideas, research these ideas. I know, Ethan, you guys put it together on the website, all of the sales experts, all 11 experts, and their LinkedIn profiles and ways to get to know them and connect with them. Do that. There is so much value. I mean, just in watching these interviews and reading this book, my mind has already expanded a ton. There's so much information to learn from them. And then, of course, if this is interesting to you, pre-order the book, get a little bonus if you're going to pay for it, right? That's always fun to get. So I know we are literally on the dot at 11 o'clock here. We appreciate all of you so much. Alicia, have you seen any questions or anything big there that we're missing out on answering?
I haven't. I was keeping an eye while you guys were talking about the book, and it doesn't look like we are missing anything. Our team did a great job of answering those questions in the chat. So awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for being here. Always a pleasure. Thank you to our guest, Ethan. We appreciate your time. All that wisdom.
I appreciate the opportunity to share this. Like, we put hours and hours, and each of those people put hours and hours into it. And it's just a privilege to be able to share not just what we've learned over the years from our customers and from each other as team members, but also to share the deep insights of these other people working in a variety of other spaces. And so I appreciate you both hosting this conversation and letting me be part of it.
Well, we love these conversations. Alicia and I'm going to say it again. This is one of our favorite hours of the month. We love talking with you guys, our clients. We really do consider you part of the BombBomb family. We really see it as a big extension of that. So thank you all so much. Find something in here that you can start working on today, right? And just start implementing that, start changing our mindset to be more you. That's all we want in this conversation. So
shifting the business culture, right. One touch at a time.
One person at a time, one email, one touch at a time. I love that. So have a great rest of your Wednesday. Thank you all for sharing this time with us. And we cannot wait to see you again next month. Reach out if we can help at all. Bye, everybody.